Just when you think you've seen it all, Texas A&M finds a new way to lose a football game. The Aggies falling to the USC Trojans. Final score of 35-31 in the Las Vegas Bowl. We are here breaking down this game, reflecting and reacting to everything that happened in Sin City. Good morning, everyone. Speaking to you in the wee hours of Saturday morning. I am Chris Phillips. He is Cole Thompson. We appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Again, as always, make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. This segment brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com. Use promo code SECU at sign up to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 or more lineup. That's prizepicks.com. Promo code SECU to get your $50 bonus today. The Texas A&M Aggies fall to USC in the Las Vegas Bowl by a final score of 35-31. Once again, we are here breaking down, reacting, and giving our thoughts on a game that it feels like Texas A&M choked away. At one point, we're up 24-7. It looked like they were going to put this thing in cruise control and cruise to a victory. Lincoln Riley and the USC Trojans had other plans. They find a way at essentially the buzzer to win this football game and snatch victory away from Mike Elko and company. Once again, I'm Chris Phillips. I'm joined by my good friend Cole Thompson to help break down just what went down in Sin City. Cole, appreciate you taking the time, my friend. What a game we've got to discuss. And, man, Aggie's going to Aggie. That's where I feel like the proper place to start. We talk about this game is.
Yeah, Chris, this game was out in Las Vegas, and they say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Whatever that game plan was defensively on the final drive, better stay at Allegiant Stadium. That looked like the Las Vegas Raiders every single Sunday trying to close out a performance. That looked like the most disastrous performance that we have seen in a hot minute. And I'm not here to be a gloater. I'm not here to talk down on Texas A&M because you want to know why? Aggies, you think that I hate you. You think that I don't agree with your policies. You think that I'm actually against you. I'm really not. I think that Texas A&M being good in college football is great for the sport. It's great for the SEC. But I told you all year. I've told you the entire year. Chris has heard me. Dave has heard me. Everyone who listens to the show has heard me. You may get a new owner of the house, but that house is going to have that lingering smell of the previous owner, the previous regime for one full year. You can trim the garden. You can take out the carpet. You can add in new floorboards. You can turn out the old, all the old, the paper. You can go ahead and fix the wallpaper. Do whatever you want. But that stench of previous regime is going to be there for one full year. Mike Elko, I believe, is the right guy. He is going to turn Texas A&M into a team that we will see consistently finish with 9, 10, 11, even 12 wins. But the Jimbo Fisher stench lingered around for one full year. Guess what? Stuck around tonight. That is a Jimbo Fisher-esque worthy performance. You're up by 3 scores. You find a way to drop the ball at the final buzzer. Congratulations, Texas A&M. You're finishing the year on a sour note. You're understanding that this is a harsh reality that we all see in college football. It's time to get back to the reality of what needs to change. My God. I can't believe the A&M fans stayed up for this BS. I really can't. I cannot believe.
I can't believe we
this
stayed
is ridiculous.
Up for this. Yes,
Chris. I don't know what's going to hit first. The Zequel I took 20 minutes before the show started, or Mike Elko's prevent defense. Because one of these two is going to hit, and I promise you, the first one didn't on the field.
And if I needed if I needed any more reason, obviously I was pulling for Texas A&M. We all were because, again, we're pulling for the SEC here. We want our SEC brethren all to do well. I also had Texas A&M minus 2.5 in the game. And, the defense – the defense on the final drive was just maddening.
Horrible.
Hey, number 8, you might want to cover him. Just cover him.
Lane? You mean the one dude that's the only wide receiver loved on the team?
I mean,
the only one.
You might want to cover him. These aren't even. Don't get me wrong. Throughout the game, he made some contested catches, but on the final drive, guys just had separation. It wasn't even they weren't even contested catches. I mean, what are we? I had somebody tell me one time, Cole, prevent defense prevents you from winning.
Oh, all the time.
And
every opportunity.
It feels like they truly went into just like prevent defense. Mike Elko and Jay Bateman, and it's just that stunned me. And I will say though, Marcel Reed, which it's unfortunate because we're not going to talk about the performance as much as we should that Marcel Reed had. He wasn't perfect, but I think you saw the shades of why you're sticking with him and you're investing in him. There was some chatter, hey, will A&M go to the portal, get a quarterback? They're sticking behind Marcel Reed. You see why, right? Like the skill set, we all knew he had it, but that touchdown run he had into the game was incredible. And he goes 26 of 42, 292, 3 touchdowns. He did throw 2 interceptions. One, by the way, 100% wasn't his fault. It went off
100%
his hands and went up in the air. Should have been a touchdown catch. And then he had 9 carries, 46 yards in the touchdown as well. I thought it was a great bounce back performance offensively after you got shut out against Texas in the season finale. So I didn't have a lot of complaints there, but we're not going to talk about it because of the defense and the fact you just choked this game away, it feels like. Again, I'm not saying Aggie's going to Aggie or this is Texas A&M to a T because I'm trying to be disrespectful. It just is what you are at this point. Like, this game, Cole, was so painfully A&M. And you know better than I do because you've been around the program, essentially in it to a degree. You're a Texan. You've watched Texas A&M for a long time. This was painfully A&M.
People don't want to admit that Texas A&M is one of these programs that will win the big one and lose a game against inferior competition. This is not the USC team that beat LSU back in week 1. Like, I want to make this abundantly clear. You can go ahead and phrase it and chalk it up that when they play in Las Vegas, USC has this bite to it, this mentality that even though we're down, we're not out of the count. This is not Miller Moss. This is not Zachariah Branch. This is not Deuce Robinson making plays. This is not having Woody Marks in the backfield, boot scooting and boogieing like Brooks and Dunn. This is a team that has lost ample talent on both the offensive and defensive side of the football. And they just out-schemed you in the final 15 minutes and put together a better game plan to pull away late and put themselves in a right situation. Half the team is in the portal, and Jaden Maeva and a bunch of ragtag who knows what are going up against the Texas A&M squad that you feel like sitting at 9-4. Guess what happens? The offseason workouts, they're so much better. The way that you go into recruiting, saying we're missing this piece, you can be that missing element. You can be that reason that we get to that 10-win marker. We're in the running for a college football playoff. That goes out the window. The way that all the animosity, the way that all the praise and accolades that go around Texas A&M, year 1 underneath Mike Elko, bye-bye, blown away, just like you're sitting and waiting on 18 and the dealer hits 21 and you lose the double down. That's what you saw tonight against an inferior team. And again, that's Texas A&M. It's been Texas A&M. And this is what I mean when I talk about a team like the Aggies. I believe that Mike Elko is going to change the culture. I believe that he has gone out and he's added in the right pieces around him. I like the recruiting class. The way they just went out and brought in Micah Hudson and Mario Craver, the wide receiver from Mississippi State. That's going to benefit a guy like Marcel Reed extensively in 2025. They got Reuben Owens. They're going to have Amari Daniels. They're going to have a much more stable offensive line. They're going to have not as potent as a defensive line, but they're still going to have some great dudes up front that are going to force a quarterback into making mental mistakes. And the schedule is the exact same next year, except instead of playing against a team like LSU and Texas at home, you're going on the road. But this was always going to happen because it's Texas A&M. And it's the same regime up until the next season because the lingering stench of the Jimbo Fisher era of finding ways to beat the #1 program in Alabama in your backyard when you're unranked, yet losing to a Jaden Maeva-led squad with no wide receivers that we're really talking about outside of Jacoby Lane is exactly what's up A&M's alley. And Marcel Reed, give him a lot of credit. The kid balled on out in the fourth quarter. He put the team on his back. That third down read to be able to pile drive in for a touchdown, that should be the point of emphasis here. He was at the brink of losing a game at the 2-minute timeout. And yet here we are watching them take that next step forward. Yet sorry, here we go. Once again, A&M shooting itself in the foot. That's what happens out in College Station. And that's what you brought in a Mike Elko to change that narrative. But you have to agree, I've told you guys all year long, this was going to happen. The Aggies were going to Aggie at some point. Aggie, the final game of the year against a USC squad. And this is the crazy part. Like, Chris, think about this for a minute. USC is lucky to be bowl eligible, sitting at 6-6. Arkansas beat the 5th best team in the Big 12 tonight by double digits. A&M, that going into the final month was projected to be in the college football playoff, lost 3 of its last 4 games, including all 3 in conference play, a quadruple overtime, and then lost to a team that has no help on offense. And the team that we have been making fun of all year long, they're currently sitting at 2-0 against the SEC. Makes sense of bowl season, Chris. Makes sense of bowl season right now.
Yeah, I mean, this was a game, certainly to your point, Cole, that if you're following bowl season, I guess we shouldn't be shocked that this game went from being 7-7 at halftime to turning into like a freaking instant classic. I thought, I mean, listen, I guess if I'm trying to view positives here from this one, thank God we didn't get overtime because it's 2:30 Eastern. It's pretty late. You know, we didn't
clock hour. Let's just.
I thought we were destined for overtime at one point. But you know, I'll say this, Cole. I still think I would look at year 1 of Mike Elko in College Station as a success. I think they had a good year, but it is a really nasty taste in your mouth right now if you're an Aggie that you lost 4 of your last 5, including 3 in a row. And and your win was against New Mexico State in that group of the last 5. You know, that you got blasted in Columbia against South Carolina. You lost a game to Auburn in 4 OTs that I think it's fair to say you shouldn't have lost that game. I know Jordan Hare at night, but like, you know, you were favored. You that one hurts. And then you got essentially blanked by Texas. I know you had the pick 6, but you put up 0 offensive points, and that punches their ticket to the SEC title. And then, man, you got this bowl game. You're up 24-7. You score with 150 or whatever left, and you still can't hang on. So it's you know, to your point, Colin, I think we talked about that going into this game when we previewed it. That's why this one was so big for A&M because, you know, it's much different if you were to finish 9-4. You'd still be like, man, like we didn't finish the way we wanted, but at least we bounced back in a bowl game, won that. You know, now year 1 of the Mike Elko era, we're going to spend a lot less time about the successes of his year 1, which I think there were many, and we're going to be more focused on, Mike Elko year 1, losers of 4 of their last 5. Like that's kind of how it's going to be remembered, which is unfortunate. But I agree with what you said, Cole. I said this back over the summer. You can't fix a broken culture in one offseason. No. And I just think I think there were times to where, like you said, that stench still lingers, and A&M's just got to get to a place where they're shaking off stuff like this, man. You got to at some point get over the hump, and we'll see if Mike Elko's that guy. But you know, we need to move past at some point, Cole. You know, remember when Clemsoning was a thing? Like Aggieing is a thing, and like we got to get to a point where we're not talking about Aggieing as much. I don't know what's got to change or what's got to happen, and I think most folks believe that Mike Elko can be the guy and is the guy, but the frustration level is just all-time high right now, man.
Here's the problem, Chris, is that if you don't beat a top 10 Mizzou squad, and let's say that you win against an Auburn squad, and you don't beat a LSU squad, but let's say that you beat a Notre Dame squad at the start of the year, and you still go 8-4, the way that people look at you is completely different than how you were. You were 7-1 going into the month of November, and yet you lose 3 of your last 4 games. And all of them are against Power 4 opponents, and all of them are also against SEC opponents. And the crazy part of all that, Chris, is that you lose those games, yet all the way up until Thanksgiving weekend, you're still in the race for the SEC championship. Like, that's year 1 underneath Mike Elko. You're still in the hunt for a conference title. All you got to do is beat Texas. You have a dreadful performance against South Carolina in the second half. You aren't able to close the door against Auburn on the road and Jordan Hare. And let's just go ahead and call a spade a spade. Jordan Hare Stadium, once a year, they always get the voodoo magic of the shaman man that is buried beneath the stadium to come alive, and it's usually against Alabama. Alabama was hosting the Iron Bowl this year, so they didn't get that. So you were probably going to drop a game because they just hadn't had that Jordan Hare magic. But you stayed alive. And then everyone talks about how right afterwards, Torian York, which really frankly upset me after that game, said, oh, well, now we're going to play in some random bowl game that nobody cares about, like the Texas Bowl. And then they go to Las Vegas and they drop a ball game there because they already told you what the colors were after losing in the Lone Star Showdown for the first time in 13 years. Oh, we're going to go to some random nonsensical bowl game. That should never be the attitude for anybody. And you were up by 21. And yet you found a way to let them come back. You nearly are able to go ahead and put yourself in a great position to pull away with the win. Yet with that attitude after the game in the Lone Star Showdown, you come back, you kind of figure this is going to happen. And that's a culture thing. That's a thing that isn't going to change overnight. That's something that's going to be sustainable until you get the right people in the building. And unfortunately, you may have the right coach, but just because you have the right coach, you have to have the right followers. And it feels like that was always going to be a long time building that relationship. Whether it was Mike Elko bringing in the right personnel, going into the transfer portal, like all of these things aside, it's a disgusting feeling. And the problem with, again, Texas A&M is that the Aggies, and I'm saying this to be kind, but I'm saying this also for a reality check. So A&M fans, you may think that I hate you. I'm trying to bring you back down to the reality of what is the standard currently in College Station. You put the wagon before the horse every single time. You get a signature win, and you think that you're right back in the conversation for being a college football playoff contender. You think that you're right there alongside the Alabamas and the Georgias and the LSUs, and then you throw in the Texases of the world, and then you throw in the Ole Miss of the world, and you say, because if we beat a Missouri squad that had no life on offense, we belong in that same conversation. And the reality is that you haven't proven on a consistent basis that you do belong there. 8-4 in year one for Mike Elko is a really strong year if you show that there is growth and development on the offensive side of the football. Let me remind you that with an offensive-minded coach in Jimbo Fisher in 2022, after landing the #1 recruiting class in the history of all-time recruiting classes, you finished 95th in scoring, you finished 110th in passing, you finished 101st in total offense, and you finished 98th in rushing. You had no offensive life. And so 8-4 with having at least an identity on offense, and for the most part, a solid defense up until today's performance, that to me is a good standard. But the problem is that you expected now to be in the running for a college football playoff berth, and that wasn't going to happen in year one. It wasn't going to happen because your schedule wasn't going to bode you the same way that it does for a team like Indiana. But the fact is that now you know what needs to be fixed overnight. Now you know there are things that are either going to either hinder our success or help us get into the conversation of 9-3, 10-2, 11-1. That's the reality. But unfortunately, because of what you kind of went into this bowl game with after losing 3 of your last 4, you shot yourself in the foot. And so any A&M fan right now that's acting like, oh, we didn't think that this was going to happen. Why wouldn't it happen when players made it abundantly clear that they had checked out before the game even started? It was like, oh, we're going to a bowl game. We know that we're going to beat an inferior team. Well, the only inferior team that I saw on stage today was the one in the fourth quarter that had a 21-point lead and found a way to blow it, which is the usual, typical Texas A&M standard as of right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's inexcusable. And I mean, I this game doesn't change the fact, Cole, that I think Mike Elko is the right fit in College Station. I think he will have – I think he's going to have success. I don't know if that equates to winning an SEC title or a national championship or anything of the sort, but I think he's a good fit for A&M. I do think he's going to tie up some loose ends, fix the culture. But, yeah, it's just sick and tired of being sick and tired if you're a Texas A&M fan. I will say on a quick side note, Cole, again, there were a lot of positives in this game, maybe not defensively at a lot of times, but Cassius Howell, that play he had,
yeah,
I think I saw a lot of buzz on the timeline, and A&M fans are really excited for him, the freshman, making the big – it's about as athletic a play as you're going to see from a defensive lineman, 6'4", 245. He's actually a junior, but 6'4", 245. A guy that's been seldom used and had that big tip and the interception. And then, again, I go back to Marcel Reed, Cole. I mean, I would ask you this. Do you feel after what you saw tonight better, worse, or the same about Marcel Reed going into 2025?
I feel about the same but I feel like that his weaponry is going to be better. So you know that you're going to have Noah Thomas back next year. You're going to lose Jabri Barber, but you're bringing in Micah Hudson and you're bringing in Mario Craver. I think Mario Craver is one of the more underappreciated wide receivers in the SEC. He played in an offense that was never going to catapult him to success because of what the personnel was around him in Mississippi State. I think that as the number 2 or number 3 receiver down in College Station, he will fit like a glove. I think that Micah Hudson, one of the most underappreciated wide receivers in the recruiting class. This was a 5-star talent that I don't think was properly utilized out in Lubbock. He's going to go and be now the future potential number 1 out for the Aggies. That's going to be huge. I think that's fantastic. And then also you get Ruben Owens, Amari Daniels, and Le'Veon Moss next year. So it feels like the supporting cast is only going to continue to grow underneath a guy like Marcel Reed, where it didn't have that at times this year because of you trusted so much on Ja'Day Walker, you trusted so much on Noah Thomas. You're going to upgrade in the personnel packaging. That's where I feel really good about Texas A&M moving forward. But I don't feel like anything has changed about Marcel Reed. I knew who he was as a quarterback going into this game. I saw what I wanted to see from him. When the pocket decided to collapse, he stepped on up. He delivered a couple of big-time runs. He found his way into the end zone. He had some clean strikes. The interception at the back of the end zone, the one on the Noah Thomas play, I'm sorry, that was a great defensive play that landed in the hand of number 0. He walked it on the way back. Like, that's what we got to see tonight. So, for a guy like Marcel Reed, I think that there is a point of emphasis bringing in a guy like Jacob Zeno to back him on up. I think there is a point to say, we are putting our faith in you, Connor Wigman. Thank you for kind of stabilizing our roster. It's not you, it's us. It's actually you, but we're not going to openly say that out loud. Sorry that we're breaking up with you. You're okay with it. We're okay with it. We're going to run it back with Marcel Reed. And you feel good about the quarterbacks that you have behind him. But I do think that, once again, you have a dude that you can believe in. It doesn't mean that I feel like that he has taken the necessary step forward tonight. But supporting cast around you, sometimes, again, you can have a lousy performance, but an overall A+ supporting cast where it elevates your status and elevates the movie. That might be Texas A&M in 2025.
Somehow, some way, it's hard to do, but Texas A&M found a way to outgain USC, win the turnover battle, win the time of possession.
Every single thing they won.
Yet lose the football game.
They won every single thing. Like, okay, the Dalton Brooks interception, like at the very end of the game, I thought was really, really beneficial. I thought like at that moment, that's where A&M has it. Because think about it for a second. Dalton Brooks gets a pick. All you got to do is be able to run down the clock and put yourself in a great position because you just got to play keep away. Like, do you look at Texas? And again, I know A&M fans don't want to hear about Texas, but like, go back and watch that game against Arkansas. There were 7 minutes left on the clock. What did Texas do? They played a game to where it was keep away from Arkansas's offense. That's all I figured you had to do if you were Texas A&M. Just play keep away. Don't allow Jaden Maeva to get one more opportunity to strike. Don't allow the offense for USC to get hot. Don't allow your defense to go ahead and make a big time play. So, like, to me, that was the big thing, is that Dalton Brooks did his job. He put you in a great position. What'd you do? You missed a field goal. They scored. Now they took the lead. Touchdown, and a game. All you had to do was just call proper plays offensively to be able to milk as much time off, get Randy Bond in field goal range, capitalize for 3 points, and then you were going to be in the clear. 9-4 was on the horizon. You forced 3 turnovers, and you lost a football game. That is almost inexcusable, especially when it's a team like USC that had so many opt-outs, and you had so many people opt in offensively. And then you got to see growth and maturity from several of your defensive players. That's really where I feel like that's the upsetting part, is that you saw so much time that could have been beneficial for a team like Texas A&M. You end your year on a proper note. You're up 24-7. Even still, you're up 24-21. And then you find a way to let them score. And now it's 28-21 and your offense has to go ahead and actually strike.
Yeah, the bottom line is A&M blew it, Cole. There's a lot of things I guess we could dissect from this football game, but A&M blew it. You choked. You choked at the end. And USC,
you gotta give them credit. They came back.
We talked about it, man. The opportunity. I know that Lincoln Riley is not a very popular name in SEC country, but 2-0 against the SEC in 2024 starts and ends this season beating an SEC team. So
he gets that bragging rights. Before we get on out of here, I do want to ask you, give a grade for year 1 of the Mike Elko regime out in College Station.
Yeah, I'd still go a pretty favorable grade. I'm probably going to go something like I'd probably say B plus. I think B plus.
Really? Okay.
I just because well, here's the thing. I came into this season with much more conservative expectations for A&M than most. I picked them to go 7-5 in the preseason, and I feel like an 8-win season should still be looked at. Like they did a lot of good this year. It did not end the way they wanted, obviously losing 4 of their last 5, but I still think all things considered, I didn't expect this A&M team to go win 10 games. That's the thing. So, yeah, I mean, you could talk me into a B, but I feel like B plus. Like I think they still had a pretty good year. I do. I think they had a good year. There were some, again, some of those losses down the stretch. I mean, the Texas game and this one back to hell, the Auburn, then Texas, then this one back to back to back. That really stings. I mean, those 3 losses really, really hurt, but the entire body of work, I still think they had a pretty good year.
I go B minus. Because if I really want to put it at a solid B, but when you lose 3 of your last 4 and the way that you lose it, and again, I will stand on.
Would it have been a B if they held on to this game?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Honestly, it probably would have been. It may even would have been an A minus, like or at least a B plus. It would have been because of you not changing a culture overnight. You're not. This was a flawed culture for years underneath Jimbo Fisher, where it was a bunch of word salad vomit that was always about the snake oil salesman pitch that wasn't going to live up to its expectations. It never did. Texas A&M has yet to have a double-digit winning season since its first year in the SEC underneath Kevin Sumlin. Cliff Kingsbury was the offensive coordinator, and Johnny Manziel was the starting quarterback. That was the last time we saw a double-digit win season. And Texas now has a double-digit win season in the SEC, and Missouri has multiple double-digit win seasons in the SEC. Oklahoma is the only team right now in the last decade, alongside Texas A&M, that has 1 or fewer seasons of double-digit wins, and they're in year 1. So I'm sorry, I got to give it a B minus because of you had your opportunities, but also you knew that you had opportunities to just be a solid team, but you put the wagon before the horse when you got a signature win over at Mizzou, and so you started acting like that we were right alongside teams like Texas, we were alongside teams like LSU, and then you got a win over LSU. You came back against LSU, and you played a phenomenal game once you put in Marcel Reed. But then you found a way to shoot yourself in the foot on the road in Columbia. Then you found a way to shoot yourself in the foot on the road in Auburn. And I will stand on business. People don't realize, oh, it was Auburn. Auburn was always going to fight. Like, Auburn's this terrible team. Auburn, every once in a blue moon, gets one of these random ass wins at Jordan-Hare. And it usually is in the Iron Bowl. The Iron Bowl was on the road. You were not going to have that happen this year. So they had to do it against somebody. Who was it against? It was against Texas A&M. And then you looked awful in the second half against Auburn. And you looked awful at times, especially in the first half against Texas. And then you looked awful against USC down the stretch. So I got to put you at a B minus. Losing Le'Veon Moss sucked. Not having Reuben Owens at the start of the year sucked. But you have to find a way to put yourself in a position to where you make up for it, especially if you treat yourself like you're a team that belongs in that 9-3 and 10-2 conversations. Because you want to know who's not making excuses at this point? Oklahoma. Oklahoma's firing people left and right because they realize 6-6 is not the standard here. We treat ourselves like we're a blue blood. We're going to start acting like it, damn it. And if you don't think that we are, watch how quickly we fire somebody that we believed in, that we just gave a contract extension to. Like, that's Oklahoma at this point. So you got to realize that if you want to act a certain way, if you start off the year 7-1, and you close out the year with 3 of your last 4 games and losses, 4 of your last 5 if you include the bowl game, that is not okay. That is not the way that you expect it, especially if you're going to act that way at a place like Texas A&M. But if you're okay with being an 8-4 team, then it's a solid B minus. That's where it comes down to. Texas A&M is not a blue blood, but they have high sky expectations, and they act like that they belong in the premier conversation of all teams in the SEC. And they can be that way. People don't realize how much success and how much money is bled through the program of a place like Texas A&M, how much resources they have in a place like College Station. They can actually be a serious program, but they have to have the right culture. They were never going to get it in year 1, ever. And those who actually believed it was going to happen, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what you're actually believing in. I don't know what you're drinking at night, but please pass it on over. That way I can have a sip and I can enjoy the Kool-Aid. That way I am entrenched in the Aggie culture to believe that in year one, this was going to happen.
And to your point, Cole, it's why I said earlier, I do still believe in Mike Elko and that he's going to get it. He's going to get A&M, I think, where Aggie fans want to be, because you are absolutely right. And I'm certainly not the first one to say this, and not to sound like a broken record or that I'm parroting others, but you have everything you need at Texas A&M to win at a high level. I mean, again, we were there last regular season game for that Texas game, and I got to walk around the facilities and go into Kyle Field and see College Station. I mean, they have everything. They have everything you could ask for. And like you said, all the resources and all the investment, if you will. And so, I think that it's the last piece is getting the people. You got to, I mean, like you said, the only way to change the culture is to change the core nucleus of your team, change the people. When your best players are also your best people and they're your leaders, and that's how a culture is really built and put together. And that's what's going to change Texas A&M, along with, of course, getting talented football players. But that goes without saying. So it's a fair grade from you. But I think A&M, man, you got to look at yourself long and hard in the mirror and tie some things up, and just you got to figure out, man, again, why these collapses are happening. And because at some point it's always going to be A&M's going to A&M and Aggie's going to Aggie until you no longer do that. Unfortunately, this bowl game was just yet again another example. And, give USC credit, but that was a game Texas A&M had in their grasp. And
No, but at the same time, you have to give USC credit. They were down by 3 scores, and they found a way to come back. That says a lot, especially for a quarterback in Jada Maeva that didn't win the starting job outright, including a bunch of players that didn't enter the transfer portal. I'm not saying that a guy like Lane, who was a talented wide receiver, I think he was actually the leading receiver at the start of the year, could not go ahead and ball on out. I'm not doubting USC, because USC at times this year has shown us multiple instances how talented of a team they are. But when you're up by 3 scores and you're in the SEC and you don't have as many opt-outs as USC does, you should not be losing that football game. There can be 2 truths here. One team bought in from the get-go. Another team never, ever even showed up to the field, and they act like they were better than advertised.
Yeah, I mean, there's no excuse that A&M – there's no excuse for them losing that football game.
Not even a little bit.
And I will say, too, Cole, on a side note, that was you have some mixed reviews out there about how much do bowl games matter? Do these bowl games matter at all? That looked like 2 teams who really gave a damn. I mean, that game, especially the second half, lived up to the hype. It lived up to why we were so excited for it. And, I mean, that was, take all the rooting interest out and take, just purely from a college football fan's perspective. That was a hell of a football game. So we got one great game, and A&M and USC certainly delivered that in the Las Vegas Bowl. But, guys, let us know your thoughts. I mean, again, of course, A&M folks, I think we've got some USC folks in the comments in the live here. Again, there's just under 900 of you tuned in. I know we're past the point of burning the midnight oil, but if you're here, hey, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. We do this for every single SEC bowl game, and essentially every single day. We're live talking college football, college baseball, college basketball, SEC sports, everything in between. Again, like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, you can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. For Cole Thompson, I'm Chris Phillips. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we will catch you on the other side.